What's up guys, Justin here with the RenderingEssentials.com. In today's video we're going to check out the newest version of D5 Render, version 2.2. Let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, so you can find more detailed information about the new version of D5 Render by going to this blog post, which I will link to in the notes down below. It lists out the new features as well as shows a couple different videos from D5 Render showing how they work. I thought we could hit on some of the highlights of some of the new stuff that's been released in this new version. Alright, so first off, and probably the biggest new feature in this, in my opinion, would be the weather system, which is the rain and snow system. So they've added a new system allowing us to add rain and snow inside of our rendering. And so you can access those new weather functions by going on the right hand side of your page under environment, and you can adjust your weather functions in the weather drop down here. So note that the clouds is only going to work if you toggle to the if you toggle to the geo and sky tab, then you can toggle the clouds on and off and manage these. It wouldn't make sense for them to be on with the HDRI because you're using the HDRI to light your scene. But you also have options for things like fog. So you can add fog to your scene. You can also add wind. So one thing to be aware of with the wind function is I'm pretty sure it only affects objects from the asset library that have been marked as dynamic, which you can see the little box right here. You can also check the box right here in order to find those dynamic only objects like this. But just note that when we turn the wind up, right, so we're going to toggle the wind on right here. We're going to turn the strength up. Notice how the tree on the right is really kind of moving, and you can adjust like the direction and everything else. But the tree on the left, you're just not really getting a whole lot of movement in here. And so the reason for that is because this is set up as a dynamic tree and this is not. And notice that I am putting this on like middle preview quality. So the trees are actually pretty high quality, but it's something that just for performance sake, I'm running my preview on the middle. So just note that with the wind function, if you want the trees to work in the background using this tool, then make sure that you're using the dynamic trees from the library. And then you've also got an option in here for precipitation, which is going to allow you to adjust or add rain and or snow to your scene. So if you drag this to the right, we're going to get snow in our scenes. And if you drag all of these up, then you're going to be able to get like a stronger effect that's in here. So if I fly outside of this, notice how I'm getting snow all over this. If you were to drag it to the left, we would get rain. Then you can also set if the rain like ponds. So you'll get little ponds of water in here, which can really make this look a lot more realistic when it comes to the actual weather inside of D5 Render. All right, so the new Projector Tool is actually a widget, so you can access it inside of Preferences and you can toggle on Projector right here. Notice that anything that's a part of the widget is going to be a Pro function, so you do need the Pro version in order to access that. But you can toggle on the projector. And one of the cool things about this is if you click on this, it gives you instructions on how to use it. So we're just going to go to our navigation bar, light source, projector. So navigation, projector right here. And so when we do that, what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to place this projector in the 3D space. Well, then you can rotate it so that it points at the wall like this. So we can rotate that 90 degrees, but then we can come in here and we can click on this option right here and we can load a video. So let's say I was to pull in my last D5 Render update video like this, we can just click on that. Well, what that's going to do is we're going to want to, whoops. And so we're going to want to rotate that like this. This is actually really cool because what it's doing is it's taking that video and it's actually playing it as if it was projected in the real world. So you can adjust things like the cone angle. Notice how if we adjust that angle down, then the light is more concentrated and this gets to be a little bit brighter. So you can also adjust the intensity, which is going to adjust how strong the effect is, as well as the attenuation radius, which is going to set how far out this goes. And you can also adjust the haze coming out of the projector. And so we can use this to actually project video onto walls or objects inside of our scenes, which I think is pretty cool. So another widget feature that they've added is the ability to merge project files together. So basically you can take multiple different project files and merge them together. So if you have like a site and then you have a building or something like that, you can use this in order to merge those two projects. So merging projects is still a beta feature. It's also a pro feature that's contained inside of the D5 widget function. So just be aware that this is still under development, but it will give you the ability to at least test out merging projects together. So they've also added several new effects that you can apply for post-processing, which you can find over in the Effects tab. So these are going to allow you to adjust like the tint of your scene. So if I click and drag this, for example, notice how my scene tint is going to change in here. That's going to adjust the green and magenta range. They've also added vignette, allowing you to add that kind of like darker edge around the outside of your scene, as well as chromatic aberration, which is basically going to allow you to simulate camera lens color shift inside of your scene. So if you use chromatic aberration, that's now in here as an effect as well. So they've also improved the GI effect on the vegetation assets. All you really need to know on that one is it just means that you're going to get a better result with your lighting for your vegetation assets. So they've also added layer functionality in here. So in addition to being able to toggle off individual objects over here in the outliner section, what you can do is you can take multiple different objects. So let's say we wanted to take a bunch of these trees, for example, and drop them on that layer. You can just take them, drop them on the trees layer right here, and notice how those are also managed over here in a little drop down right here, but then you can toggle that layer on and off. So now we've got that layering functionality, which is really going to help us keep our scenes organized in D5. So they've also added Decal Assets, which is something I'm really excited about. I love adding detail with decals without having to actually model anything. You can access those by going into your Assets section under Model and going down to Decals, and then you can just take those and you can just place them on a surface, right? So if I click on this, right, then I can place this on a surface. I can also adjust things like the rotation in here. So I could set this to like 90 degrees, and you can also adjust things like the size and scale. So you can make this bigger or smaller, and it's basically going to sit on your surfaces and allow you to add things like painting or wall damage or other things like that. You can kind of adjust the maps down below. So if you want to adjust like the transparency or something like that to make it look a little faded, you can do that with these maps. So let's say I wanted to add maybe some wall damage or something like that. I could just drag that into my scene right here, add it to the top of my wall. And again, you can come in here and you can adjust things like the material transparency or other things like that. This is just a really good way to add detail without having to do a whole lot of extra work. One thing I find interesting in here that I haven't really had a chance to mess around with too much is there's actually an emissive functionality in here. So you can actually set your decals to emit light. So again, not something I've had a chance to do a ton of work with, but I think there's definitely some interesting functions that you could use for the emissiveness of these decals. So there's actually a ton of other changes that were made that I guess you could call a little bit more minor, but really all that they do is they're improving the functionality kind of in the background. So I'd recommend going to this 2.2 list and kind of reading through what they have in here, because they've got a bunch of really interesting stuff. So they've made some other additions to the asset library as well. So they've added some different snow models. So if you're using the snow function, there's also some models in here with like little drifts and other things like that. They've added additional materials to the library, as well as more static vehicle models. So these are the kind of things that definitely can improve just the usability of a program in general, just because what it does is it gives you more access to more different kinds of models so that you can do more things with it. So again, I'd recommend reading through it. One other thing that is interesting to me that I haven't had a chance to fool around with all that much is the brush records. So basically what it does is it allows you to basically see the objects that were painted when you use a brush. So you can hide or delete some of those separately. So that gives you more control over what the brushes can do. You've also got SketchUp 2022 model import available in this version. All right, so leave a comment below. Let me know what your favorite new feature of this new version is. I just love having that conversation with you guys. I will link to D5 Render in the notes down below if you want to download it and give it a try. But as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.